for coming today, and thank you for waiting around a little bit. We were stuck in traffic. Which is about 5.5 hours north of here. So we were coming straight, and we just got a little... So it just came out January the 6th, so it is a brand new book baby. It's not even a month old. And it's having such a fun time out here. We hit the USA Today bestseller list the first week it was out, which is amazing. And I write magical realism books. Are y'all familiar with that genre? Okay, and if you're not, the easy way that I explain it is it's everyday characters and everyday situations that have enchantment and whimsy just weaved all throughout the stories. So they're cozy. And the Charm Library is also set in a small town. The kind of books I like to write, most of them are set in small towns. The book that I wrote last year is actually in Nashville, which is not a small town, but it still has a little bit of that small town feel if you've ever been there. It's a big city, it's got a lot of stuff to do, but it doesn't take but just a few minutes to get right outside of the city, and you can kind of have that small town feel as well. But I want to tell you a little bit about the Charm Library. Does everybody here have a library card? Yeah, and if you don't, it's really easy to get one. But the Charm Library, the idea for this book, it came from the fact that I really do love libraries, but I've also always had a dream to spend the night in a library, which might sound kind of odd, but it actually sounds really fun to me to be surrounded by books. I love that idea. I love the idea that there's something for everybody in a library. There's a book for exactly what you're looking for. And I also love the librarians that I don't know if you've ever gone to a librarian and you ask them for a specific kind of book, you tell them what you're looking for, and they know exactly where to find it. And they know other books just like that, which feels very magical to me, which goes along perfectly with me writing magical type books. But the Charm Library, like I said, I wanted to spend the night like in this library, and then because I write magical books, I just wondered, what would happen if I'm spending the night in the library? And because the kind of books that I write, I know that it's going to be something enchanted. I know that the books are probably going to try to get my attention. Maybe they're going to talk to me. Maybe they're going to wiggle on the shelf. And then the next thought I had was, what if I could bring out fictional characters from their books? What would they say to me? What would I want to say to them? And who would I want to bring out? And I love that idea. Do you know which fictional character you'd want to meet in real life? You can tell me later if you don't know right now. I have some that I would want to talk to. Yeah, you've got some right now, right? Yeah, you've got a lot, maybe, like a big list. I do too, which I think is also just the cool thing about stories. They just become a part of who we are, even if you read them as children. So this is where this idea came from. I want to talk to characters, and so I knew that my main character, her name is Stella. And Stella is an assistant librarian in Blue Sky Valley, North Carolina, which is not a real town. But the reason why I chose a fictional town for this book is because how do you pick which library is enchanted? They all have something special about them anyway. And I have spent some time in North Carolina just visiting a lot. It's not too far from where we live now. And it's inspired by those towns in the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Smoky Mountains that just have that feel to them. So that's why I picked Blue Sky Valley. And Stella, she's working in this library. And Stella also has a gift. She can see words. She can literally see words. They will bounce out of objects. They will just come down from the ceiling. They might kind of hover around a person. And words have always shown up to her for as long as she can remember. And she calls it like capturing her words. She'll write them in journals. But they're also different colors, and they're different sizes, and they're different shapes. They look a certain way to her, just because of what the words are trying to tell her, maybe even what the word is. If I told you the word muddy, you're going to kind of start to think about what muddy looks like to you, or what a muddy area is, and that's the way the words are. They look very distinctly to what they're trying to tell her. Now, Stella doesn't really tell anybody about this gift because, it's one of those things about yourself that you don't lead with when you meet somebody new. You kind of wait till you know them a little bit better. And so the book starts out with Stella. She's gone through a breakup, and she has written a lot of love notes and poetry into a journal. Have you ever heard of the idea that if you write something on a piece of paper and you burn it, that it'll set you free? Yeah, so Stella, she's heard this too. So what she's going to do is burn her journal. Now the first word of this book is Stella Parker had never burned a book in her life. but this is where it starts. So there is a basement in the library, and there's also a furnace. And so what Stella does is she decides she's going to throw that journal into the furnace. And she does. You think it sets her free? No, come on, it doesn't set her free right away. But what does happen is words come out of the furnace immediately, and then more words start showing up to her in a way they have never shown up to her before. They are very demanding, and they're urgent, and they're almost painful. She can just feel them, and she knows they're trying to tell her something, but she has no idea what they're trying to say. And about the same time, the head librarian has to take a leave of absence, and Stella encounters some strange people in the library after hours. And one of them looks a lot like her first fictional crush, like her book boyfriend. And then he introduces himself as Jack, who is her first fictional crush. And she says, no way, there's no way you're really Jack from the book, because probably the head librarian has hired somebody to pretend to be him, somebody who looks a lot like him, maybe to get her back in the dating world. And he says, no, I'm Jack, I'm from a book. And there's magic hidden in this library, and the head librarian has been using it for years to bring out characters. She doesn't believe him, and he says, I'm going to show you. So he shows her how to use the magic, which I'm not going to tell you how to use it because it's in the book and it'll spoil it for you. So she doesn't believe it, right? So what she decides to do is try it out. Would you try it out? If I told you you could bring out fictional characters, I know she's going to try it out. Yeah, okay. If you're with me, I'm going to make you try it out. Well, she does, and she decides to bring out a fictional villain. I know, right? Would you bring out a villain? Is that one of your options? No, okay. So I've talked to hundreds of people since this book came out. Only 2 people have admitted that they'd bring out a villain. Everybody else is like, no, thank you. So she brings out a villain, you know what? And it works. So then it's really chaotic, right? She's got this villain, and also what you need to know is when you bring a character out of their book, they can only stay for 14 days. Do you know why? Because that's as long as you can check a book out, right, all right? So Jack, he's already been out of his book. She didn't bring him out, so he's already been out for more than 14 days. So now she's got her book boyfriend, and he's on a time clock. He's got to go back. And then she's got a villain that she's stuck with for 14 days. Well, there are also other characters inside the library. She's got these words that are showing up to her, and she's also got a book festival that's happening in town. So there is a lot going on in Stella's life, and it is really, really upside down, but it is also a lot of fun because you're going to recognize some of your favorite literary characters in this book. You're going to also recognize some of your favorite stories, and if you love libraries like you're here tonight, you're going to just be surrounded by this idea that stories really are alive. It was a lot of fun to write this book because I also love libraries. I've got some favorite fictional characters, and it was fun to try to figure out who would Stella really need to encounter in the library? Who would she need to talk to? Of course, having your book boyfriend is a lot of fun because, you know, is he real, is he not real? But there's some characters you're going to recognize. They're very beloved, and so one of the fun challenges for me was creating a character that you're going to recognize and writing that character and having them talk to you in a way that is going to feel very real to you. Because these beloved characters, you've got expectations for how they're going to be and what they might say, and I wanted to make sure that they're believable and they feel legitimate to you. And so one of the pluses for me was my editor is a super fan of one of the characters who's in this book, and I was able to say, hey, I need you to read all the, I mean, she's going to read it anyway because she's my editor, but you need you to really read about this character and the dialogue, and does it feel real to you? Because, you know, some of our characters we've seen recreated many times, like The Wizard of Oz. You know, there's been a lot of other books written, there's spin-off TV shows. If anybody has seen Wicked, has anybody seen Wicked or even seen the play? Well, it's a new take on characters that we already know and love, but it's done in a way that makes you feel like, well, maybe that story could be true too. So that's really fun, that you get to think about characters that I know that you're going to recognize, and how can I write them in a way that just feels good. Did y'all grow up going to libraries? Yeah, okay, were you like you're young and you were coming forever? So I didn't actually like to read. This is fun for me for the library story, because I didn't actually like to read. I could read really well, but I did not like books. I thought they were not good. And the reason why was because when I was a kid, our required reading was, if you can tell me if you've read any of these, The Red Badge of Courage, Old Yeller, Where the Red Fern Grows, The Yearling, The Scarlet Letter, thank you. They're depressing, right? They're really sad. So I'm a little girl reading books and they're super sad. And I didn't know enough about libraries or books or even the world to know that there were other kind of books. I mean, there were other books in my house my brothers read, but I just assumed they were all going to be like that, and I was not interested in that. But if you've ever had a teacher who really changed your life, I had a teacher when I was 12, I think I was in the 6th grade, and she pulled me aside after class and she said, I want you to read this book. And it was A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, wonderful.
I know, it is wonderful. It changed my life. It's really why I'm here with you today, because it just opened up a whole world of books to me. It made me realize that there were a lot of other kind of books out there, which sounds kind of small, but I was a young girl. I didn't know. Well, then, of course, I started going to my library, in my school library at first, and this is how I told you that librarians are magical. So you're going to pretend this is A Wrinkle in Time. And I said, I want more of this book. And she knew exactly what to give me. And I read voraciously. I mean, I read everything that she gave me, and then I branched out into other genres. I've read all kinds of stuff. I've even read some Stephen King books, which are really too creepy for me, but I have read them. And I've read historical fiction, I mean, all kinds of stuff. I just read anything I could get my hands on, which, you know, is a lot when you have a library. And then when I moved off to college, and I didn't know anybody, I moved up from Georgia to Tennessee, and I spent most of my time in the library because I recognized it. It's safe, it's comfortable, it's like this library. I feel like you can go to a library in any town and you automatically are going to feel like, oh, I belong here, because there's books there. There's a story that you love, there's a new story you're going to find, and they just welcome you in. And that's what it was like for me when I didn't have any friends in college, and the library was a place I recognized, and I feel like the library recognizes us when we get in there. It's just so welcoming. So for me, my dream of spending the night in the library happened, you know, after I was in middle school, and then then later when I did become an author, it was an idea that I really wanted to play around with, because the stories I write are always going to have some kind of enchanted element. But I didn't realize how many other people would love being in an enchanted library too, until this book came out, and we've been able to talk to so many people about what characters they would want to meet and what book changed their lives, you know. And I just think it's such a, gosh, it just brings us all together, the library and books in general. But I want to leave room for questions if you have any thoughts. I don't know how do y'all like Q&As? You like asking authors questions? If you've got writing questions or book questions or library. I was a professional singer for a while. I have a podcast. I write children's books. I'm full of stuff. So if you have any questions, yeah.
How did you get started writing?
Oh, how I got started. This is a fun story. So my parents are really into the arts. They're very supportive of it, but they didn't want the children to pursue an artistic career. And it's not because they didn't think it was important, but it's not really a career at the time that feels like a stable career or a safe career. And so we were definitely strongly encouraged to go to college and get a job that made sense. So I tried that. I went to college and I tried pharmacy. I tried to be a stockbroker. None of that worked. And finally my daddy sat me down and he said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to sing, because I was in drama and I love to sing, and I actually thought I would do musical theater. I had dreams of going to Broadway. And so he was like, okay, well, you know what, let's do this. Study music, go get your degree. And so that is where I started. And then I transferred up to Nashville to go to college to study the music business to finish out my degree. And that was because I wanted to know all about the business. I wanted to know how to be a sound engineer, how to work the board, because I knew that I wanted to be a professional singer, and I wanted to understand everything that was going on in the business and in the studio. So I graduated, I put a band together, and we toured the country for about 5 years, just singing all over the place. It was amazing. And then the industry changed, and I just knew that I needed to do something else with my life. It didn't fit me anymore, so I went back to college. I got a second degree in English, and I minored in linguistics and fiction writing. And my last semester in my fiction writing class, there was a woman in my class, and she said, there's a position for a book editor at my publishing house, you should apply for it. So I did, and I was a book editor for about 20 years. I went from that house, I ended up at HarperCollins as a senior editor for a lot of years, and in all of that time, not the singing, I did a lot of songwriting, but when I was an editor, I always wanted to write, and I finally wrote a book and finished it, and that started in 2012. So I've been writing and putting out books for, what year is this, 2026?
Yeah.
since 2012. So that's kind. I mean, it just sort of unfolded. It wasn't any. I mean, even then, I was like, could I actually write books and be an author? And it just took me a while to catch on to it. I wish I had known I could do it a long time ago, but then I wouldn't be here. It's given me a lot of experience.
So how long did it take for your first book to get accepted by, to be published?
Yeah, well, actually, the first book I wrote, I independently put it out. So 7 or 8 years later, a publisher approached me and they wanted to relaunch the first book I ever wrote. It's called The Baker's Man. It's the story of a woman who inherits a bakery from her grandmother and the recipe for the perfect man, and she makes the perfect man. And so she creates a man out of dough, it's a really fun story. And they wanted to relaunch it and put it back out there because I had done so well with it on my own, and that's how I got traditionally published. But I was publishing myself for, like I said, probably about 8 years. So for them to pick it up, because the thing for independent or self-publishing versus traditional, it really depends on what you want to do with your career as an author. And it depends on what your goals are. So I wouldn't encourage people to do one or the other. I would really talk to them first and ask them what do they want to do with it. You don't have to be traditionally published if you're not looking for that kind of life or that kind of career. You can do independent and write your books and have them professionally edited, and they look, honestly, most people can't tell who put out a book, and most people don't care who printed a book. If you've put out a book and you haven't edited it, well, yeah, they do care about that. But there's so many people who independently publish now that do amazing work that it's on the bookshelf beside the other ones and nobody knows. But for me, I didn't try until about 10 years into it. And it didn't take long.
I just a little book comes at the Wellington Barnes and Noble, and so I went to a couple, one of the book clubs is doing like romantasy right now, and the last two are both like being independently published, and that's great, but their books aren't available like at libraries. So of course each of them write like a series. So if you want the whole story, there's like 3 or 4 books, and that just gets, I hate to say it, but that gets expensive, to do that.
Well, there is an option. It just depends on what the author has chosen to do. Ingram Spark does have a distribution to libraries. It just depends on if the author has chosen to do that. So it is possible. I mean, my independent books are available in the libraries. So it's really just author to author. So maybe next time you talk to them, you could see if they know that that's an option and if they'd be, interested in doing it. That way you could get their books and get them through the library. Ingram Spark, I don't know who they use. A lot of people use the Amazon platform. It's called KDP, if you've ever heard of that. Ingram Spark is also a massive independent publisher, and they do so much good for independent authors. I mean, kids' books, adult books, cookbooks, all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're actually based in Nashville, and I've been to their plant. It's a wonderful, wonderful company. And they do distribute. They'll distribute to what we call big box stores like Target, Walmart. You can get your books anywhere in there. Now, as for getting your book on a shelf in Target, that is very specific. Probably not. That's a whole lot. It's like a whole nother level. But they'll sell it online, and then you'd be able to get it. But you could talk to them about the library distribution because it's definitely an option. Yes, ma'am?
How do you decide which of your storylines will become a children's book versus adult? Because the story, the Charmed Library, outside of the breakup part, that could very much be a children's book.
I think because I don't write middle grade fiction, like that's not my go-to when I would create a story. And this is definitely, it's not kid safe, like 10-year, like 13-year-old, I think, and up would be great. They're safe books to read. I just don't naturally write middle grade or young adult. So yeah, I mean, I think you just sort of know that's the kind of story that you want to write. Certainly someone could take this idea and definitely make it a kid's story. It's just not where my brain goes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you would say.
I do write children's books. So I've written strawberry shortcake books, like with the brand, and those are, I mean, those going into it, I know they're children's books. So that's kind of the difference. And I've got some children's books of my own. But this story, like when it came to me, it's like I just knew that it was an adult book. Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
What is your writing style? Do you have outlines? Is it ID? How do you go about doing that? And how long did it take to write this book?
Okay, so have you ever heard the word pantser? Right, so a pantser means you write by flying by the seat of your pants. And then the other kind of writer, and I know there's probably some in between, they call themselves plotters. So I don't write an outline. Like when I think of an outline, I think of something I did in college where it's broken down with ABCs. And I write what I call a long summary, and it is about 4,000 or 5,000 words long. It's normally 12 to 14 pages. It can be longer, and it tells you everything that happens in the story. And it tells you all like the high points, the big plot points. It doesn't have dialogue or minutia. Like I write organically, but this story, I know everything from start to finish. And so once I get that done, it may take me a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, because every day I'm thinking about it and I'm creating and I'm adding and like what happens next and what happens next. Well, when I get done with it, I can start writing. And so every day when I get up and write, I know exactly where I'm going. It's very fast. So I can write a book in 3 months or less. That's the first draft, and I'm totally done with it, and then I'll let it sit for a couple of days, and then I'll start over and read the whole thing again, and then I'll do my revision. Normally I only do that one time, and then I'll turn into my editor. That's my process. So it doesn't take me long, and mainly because I know exactly where I'm going every day when I sit down to write. It makes it easy for me. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir?
All right, I'm a Shakespeare buff. Can you finish his quote? Alas, poor Yerk, I knew him.
Is this from Hamlet? You want me to finish the quote?
Yes.
I have not read that in so many years. Will you finish it for me?
Alas, poor Yerk, I knew him. Horatio.
Horatio.
Everyone thinks that it says, I knew him well. But if you read it, it's I knew him Horatio, because that's when they're digging up.
Yeah, they're digging him up.
No, they're digging the grave for Ophelia in the cemetery, the non-church cemetery, and he throws up a skull and he goes, who is it? He goes, oh, that's the court jester, Horatio. Alas, poor Horatio, I knew him.
There you go. Now I will always know that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
What do you read?
I'll read anything, really. I mean, I read a wide variety of things. As an author where I am now, a lot of people will send me their books early, and they want blurbs or like an endorsement. So it's really a lot of, mostly women's fiction, Southern fiction. I get some magical realism because that's my genre. But I have some really wonderful friends who are authors, and I'll read anything they write. But I love Sarah Addison Allen. I read all of Heather Weber's books. Patty Callan Henry I love. Mary Kay Andrews, Karen White, Mary Alice Monroe. I just finished the new Dan Brown book. I mean, I'll kind of read anything, which I really liked it. It's humongous, but it's really good. Yeah, I mean, people suggest stuff. I read historical fiction. It's really a variety. The only things I don't read are horror books and psychologically disturbing stuff. I just stay away from. I'll read nonfiction if it is enlightening, but I don't read like business books unless my daddy asked me to, and then I would try. Do you have a favorite author?
Yeah, but nobody's not a Robert Heinlein.
Robert Heinlein. What does he write? Oh my gosh, science fiction. That's great. I love those books. I don't know how to write one, but I appreciate that genre a lot. I like watching those movies too. Yes?
What I think about Pumice County is that all the branches are all associated, so you go to any library and check out a book. And recently they did open a new branch called the Canada branch, and I just remember, like you said, when the British opened, they came out all those new books that I would have loved to have been able to do a sleepover to the library just to absorb all that and enjoy that. And that's good.
I wish you could read them like that. You know, if you're like me, you've got this list that just grows and grows and grows, and there are books that I've read before that I want to read again, and it's just, you know, you're probably never going to get through all of them. I wish there was a fast way for us to read them and absorb them, because I don't want to speed read a book. You know, I really want to enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, even a bookstore to me is similar. Like, I feel like I just want to be in there. I just feel like you're seen when you're in the store, and there's just something for everybody, which just feels so comforting to me.
Do you ever have the feeling that you want to maybe, continue a character and create a series?
I actually do have a series. The Baker's Man, the first book I wrote, there are 2 other books in that series, but they're all standalones. So you don't have to read them in any order. Obviously, that's what standalone means. But people do like to read them in order. And I have 2 short stories that go along with that. And it's a series because it happens in the same town. And characters will weave in and out of the stories, but because you don't have to read them in order, it doesn't matter which one you pick up. But otherwise, I don't have all my other books are standalone books. I'm not against having a character decide, oh, I think this story should continue, but I haven't had that yet. For like the Charm Library, I don't have any other ideas for the characters in there, but it doesn't mean in 2 years that something won't pop up and I think, oh, I can write the same kind of, it could be the library. It could be the library in 20 years and what's happening in there now. Because I imagine the magic is always going to be in it.
When you come like discover any new writers?
Oh, we got new writers all the time, new authors. Yeah, it was very, very common. I worked a lot with first-time authors, which is fun. Just guiding them along and helping them understand. Because we got a lot of authors that not just was their first book, they wouldn't have told you they were a writer. They might be a speaker, or they might be a blogger, or someone who is what do you call it, like a food blogger, like a foodie. And so writing wasn't their first love, but they really wanted to write. And so we got to work with a lot of people and just kind of, I want to say handhold them, but I don't mean that in a bad way. Just kind of guide them along the process to kind of help them polish up the things, help them say what they want to say in a way. But a lot of new authors. I mean, we worked on a quarterly schedule, and so like every quarter we would get a new batch of stuff, and I loved it. The only reason I quit being an editor was so I could be a full-time author, that I could travel and do that, because I absolutely love being an author. And so it was just, you can't do both. At a certain point, I was working full-time, and I loved it, but I love this more. Yes, ma'am?
I'm surprised that you said your revision process is so quick. Do you think it's because of your editing background?
I do. I definitely do. I mean, I've done that for so long, and English and grammar is so easy for me, and that's just something I'm gifted in. And knowing how to craft a story that, I've worked for years doing that with other people. There's just some stuff that just intuitively you do, and some stuff you do because it's learned and just from experience. And I definitely think that has so much to do with it. And it's also a really clean manuscript. It doesn't mean that my editor doesn't come back and say, I need more depth from this character. But I've never had where they're like, oh, this is not working. Because really that long summary I told you about, I give that to my editor, and I give it to my agent, and I say, what do you think about this story? I mean, they want to be spoiled. Like, they don't want to get the manuscript and be surprised by the ending. Like, they want to know that, no, this is good. Also, they don't want you spending months writing a book that they don't like. So I don't go into it thinking it's going to be a huge editorial lift for any of us. And if I felt like I got to a point in the story that I felt stuck for some reason, I would just reach out to somebody. But yeah, I think that's probably why. I'm also generally I'm a fast writer. And that's not true for everybody, but for me, that's just my style. Also, the kind of books I write, like if you think about a historical fiction novel, it takes a lot of research. I mean, those are deep, serious, they've got tons of amazing facts in them, and my books aren't like that. There's going to be facts in it, and there's going to be research I did, but it's so much different than spending like 3 years in a library archive digging up stuff. But I definitely think the editorial thing, I mean, that was what I was, trained in.
So you said that like a publisher kind of reached out to you and let the bring back like your first book. When did your agent come on?
I didn't have an agent right away, so I have only had an agent for maybe just a year now. And that's just because I wanted one. I knew there was an agent that I wanted, and I reached out to her and I said, I want you to be my agent. What do you think? And so we had a meeting, and she read, I guess, 2 of my books and decided, she said, yes, I'd love to do this. And I really got that because I felt like at this point in my career, I just wanted to keep growing and expanding and figuring out what else is out there. And so she helped me negotiate the Strawberry Shortcake books. It makes it easy. I can do all that on my own, but I don't have to. Like when you get into the contract stuff and the money negotiations or whatever it is, it's so much better if there's like somebody in between you that you're not having to get in there. And I love having her, but I also just love working with her because she's really passionate about me and my books, and I think that's super important for your agent, that they love what you do and they love you and they're a champion for your book. So it must have been, I'd already been traditionally published for probably about 3 years. I mean, this book was pre-agent. So the next book I have will be agented book, but so there's really, and then even that question just brings up, there's so many different ways to do this. There's so many different avenues, and probably everybody has a slightly different story. That one just happens to be mine.
It's the next book about the agency one.
I can't tell you. I'd love to, I just can't. You know, that you have these, 2027. That's next year. I say that like it's so far away. It's like not now, but yeah, until they get the cover and they are sure about the title, they don't want you sharing it with anybody because it could change. They could change the title. So if I told you it's called The Magic Dog, which it's not, it might change in the next couple of months. So there's what they also do is the publishing houses do this thing called sales conference. And they bring, it's once a quarter, and they bring all the sales teams from all over the country, and they're in like one room together, or they're virtual, and they show them all the upcoming books. And they want the salespeople to see the books first, and to be the first. I think that's part of the specialness of it for them is, and then when that happens, then I can talk about it. But they don't want you spoiling it before the salespeople are super excited and are ready to sell your book.
You just mentioned the cover, and I have learned through going to these talks, and many times the author has no say on the cover of a book, which was shocking to me. And it makes more sense now because sometimes I feel like the cover does not represent a story.
Oh.
I've learned that it had changed from what the author. Do you choose your own cover? How does that?
So the way it works for me, I've always had a say in my covers. I've always also loved them. I've never gotten one that was a stinker cover. But the way it works is that they send me a document that's about 4 or 5 pages long, and they call it a cover brief. And it's full of questions and stuff. Like you do a short summary of your book, because your designer has probably not read your book. Okay? So they're going to give this brief to the designer, just so they have all the information, like what season does it happen in, who are the main characters, are there any distinctive items or objects in the book that maybe might be on the cover, all kinds of stuff. Who's your perfect reader, what demographic, what magazines do they read? It's very intense. And then they'll ask if you've got covers that you like, that you feel like would be in a good fit with yours. So if you think about a thriller cover and you go into the library or the bookstore, a lot of them look the same. And that's because they want the reader to instantly recognize the genre. So you'll notice that the colors are similar, the font styles. And so what I'll do is I'll turn that brief in, and then I don't know how many months pass. It could be 3 or 4. It's a while. They'll just send me a cover. I don't normally have a lot of options. Sometimes I've seen a couple of variations, but most of the time it's the first cover they send me. I love it. I've never had one I didn't like. If I didn't like it, I can tell them. Will they change it? I don't know, because I've never had that encounter. But for me, it's very much of a partnership. They really want me to like it. Not in like force me to like it, but they are excited to show me this cover because they spend a lot of time, they do a lot of marketing research and what my genre of books look like, what are people interested in, what is popular right now. I mean, that sounds silly, but it's not, because things that are trending, like hairstyles, they want to get on board with that so that people are like, ooh, I recognize that, I want that book. But I'm sorry there have been other authors that don't like their covers. I've just never had that experience. I just think mine are beautiful.
Yes, the publishing company ever try to encourage you to write a certain type of book, a certain type of format or genre?
No, I write magical realism. I mean, they know that. Like when they contract me out, like they know that's what I'm going to write. I've only had an editor suggest, not even ideas. Actually, the book I put out last year is called The Vanishing of Josephine Reynolds, and it's time travel. It's not sci-fi because it's magical realism. And I have never thought about writing time travel. Now that was her suggestion because magical realism and time travel means there's some kind of enchanted object, or for me it was an enchanted door. And that was it. Like that's the extent of, have you ever thought about this? But I've never had that. I mean, it would be really odd for them to say, could you write a historical fiction? Because that's not even what they contract me for. Now my agent might say something, although she's never said anything yet. She may suggest, hey, have you thought about I don't know, like you were talking about middle grade. Have you ever thought about middle grade magical book? I mean, that might be a suggestion, but no, I've never felt like I had to write for an audience or write a specific genre or write something that would sell, because I feel like my stuff sells. Somebody's going to read it. I love these books. I check them out at the library. I buy them, so I know there's a market for it. Okay. Anybody else? Anything burning up inside you gotta know?
Burning up.
I know it is chilly. I was like, is this Florida? It's chilly, y'all. But I mean, the sun was out. I don't know if it was out here, but on the way here, the sun was out for a little bit. It's even colder back home. It was 12 degrees when we left Nashville.
You should have been here 2 or 3 days ago.
Was it freezing cold?
It was cold.
Yeah, I know. Y'all are getting it too. We saw that. But I think in the next couple of days, it's going to start warming up for us. That's what we're looking for, right? Because y'all are probably not living down here for the winter time. That's not good. All right. Well, thank y'all for coming out tonight. They've got books over here. I'm happy to sign books. I'm happy to ask any questions. I'm happy to ask questions, but I'm also happy to answer any if you have any more. Thank y'all.